Hello, good night. Welcome to Legalize. Welcome to the listeners, the viewers out there. We want to once again thank our sponsors of this program, Jail Professional Solutions, Gem FM carrying this program on FM radio out of Canada, and Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
Thank you. So tonight we'll do it just a bit different. The first few minutes, we will just look back at the program last week. Bentley, we have a camera issue.
Well, good evening.
Yes, we will. 1 minute, please.
You are coming over broken up and disjointed.
We have a small technical hitch and we just glitch and we're trying to rectify it.
Hi, Jomo. Hi, Simeon.
Yes, comrade. Pleasant good afternoon. And how do you do?
Yeah, good evening. Simeon, good evening. Well, on my screen, I'm fine.
Yeah, I can see you clearly and hear
my
you clearly.
Screen, you're appearing and disappearing.
Yes, because I went to get some water.
Three
I was a
persons.
bit thirsty. Yeah.
Simeon, are you seeing me? Am I appearing consistently or appearing
Yes,
and
yes,
disappearing?
you're appearing. You're not disappearing at all.
Hello?
Yes, you're not disappearing. You are not moving. You are stagnant. You can shake the head a little bit so we know you're alive.
Jomo, is my visuals appearing and disappearing? Because
No.
happening to you what?
I'm all right now. I think I'm all right now.
He's back.
I'm all right now. We just had a glitch, and I think we may have an issue with
I'm not hearing you.
We had a slight glitch. I think we may have an issue also with the call-in. We did that before, and we wanted everybody to come on about 15 to 20 minutes to make sure we got that exactly right. Unfortunately, it didn't work that way. Jomo, you are muted.
Yeah, I'm saying I apologize. I completely forgot that you made that request for us to come on a few minutes early.
Yes, we normally want to do that to make sure we have everything right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we can go ahead still, and Bentley will try to fix up everything in the background there. But we wanted to first of all just spend the first few minutes looking at, in particular, Simeon and myself, looking at the last week program and the takeaways from last week program, Simeon.
Oh, sure.
Yes. One of the things that really came over to me from last week program, and in fact, I was discussing that with Ruggers, Ferguson, Casey after, is I don't know if people are clear that basically what was referred to as the 1958 pensions, 1958 pension, I don't know if people are clear that essentially that is on the way out. In other words, 1958 pensions will be phased out, and from now on, based on the new pension scheme, there wouldn't be anything as any difference from the standpoint of pension between established and unestablished workers. I don't know if you gathered that, Simeon, because I understand that.
Colleagues, just let me say, are you all able to hear Lane or see him? Because
yes,
he's coming over. The vocals Lane, from Lane is very distorted, and I can't follow what you're saying.
Jomo, are you hearing me
there's a visual and your vocals. Your vocals are coming over disjointed. Sections of it are not being broadcast, so you can't follow.
Jomo, are you hearing me clearly?
Yes.
You're saying.
I'm hearing you clearly.
Simeon, you hear me clearly?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
I don't know, Chess, there probably might be a problem on your side, because both Jomo and Simeon are hearing me clearly.
Whatever happened here.
The truth of the matter is that chess looks kind of slightly distorted.
Blurry, yes.
Right, blurry is the word. Yeah, so it may be his internet.
Bentley, see if you can work with him just to straighten that out.
Maybe what you should do is go out and come back.
Yes.
And see if it's any better.
Hold on a minute. Let me just
Simeon, are you able to hear? I can see you perfectly well.
Yes, I'm
But
hearing
are you
everyone.
able to hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing
Yes,
you.
Bentley is saying it might be your internet connection, Chess.
Let
You
him
got
try
that?
going out and coming back.
You should try to go out and come back in. And let me ask him to work with you.
Well, I don't know. Let me see if maybe I can access this on my phone.
Someone from outside say they are hearing all of us perfectly.
Yeah, everybody's hearing clearly.
Yes. So
But
hearing everyone
we
clearly.
all hearing you clearly. Everyone all around.
Everyone is hearing clearly, apparently.
He's not
So,
hearing us.
Simeon, I don't know if while that problem, Bentley's going to call the Bentley or Techman will call Chess and try to sort it out. But in the meantime, I don't know if that was your takeaway also from the program last week, because I gather that there is still a view. Hi, Bentley. Bentley. Yes, I gather there is still a view out there that persons who are brought into the service now and take up what is regarded as established positions in the public service, that they will be entitled to the pensions under the 1958 Act, or the 1958 pensions as it is often referred to. I gather that's a view. So it was one of the takeaways, I think, that King's Counsel clarified that in fact, going forward, there will be no distinction between established and unestablished workers from the standpoint of pension. Another takeaway I got was the concern of the General Secretary of TAO, namely the issue of the board and the concern that it may lack independence given the amount of persons who were being appointed by the minister. That was another concern, and there was also a concern expressed in terms of the fact that the monies are the contribution of the government, the matching contribution, will not be immediately vested. That it will take a period of time before the employee becomes entitled to it. I don't know if there's any special point that you want to make regarding that, Simeon?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of points I want to make because I was taking the notes as you, as well as Comrade Loggers and Bert and even Chester speaking. I took a lot of notes. So what I got out of the last program was that the law governing workers in Grenada is the 1958 pension. And public servants who retired got the 1958 pension and knew the formula to calculate it. In order to change the 1958 Pension Act, which is governed by the Constitution, a referendum was necessary. Okay? Someone who is not yet in the service or joined the service after March 1983 cannot get the 1958 pension. They will get the NS pension. And on the 3rd of April 1983, the NIS was established to take care of these persons, since it was not possible to have a pension plan which depended on the consolidated fund only. So, for example, for hurricane pass, the consolidated fund may be needed, and workers may not be able to receive their pension on time. Prior to the NIS, a public officer received approximately half of his or her salary plus gratuity. With NIS, a worker can get 60% of the pensionable amount, and the maximum pensionable amount is now $5,000. The new pension act will add 22%, bringing it up to 80%. So 60% from the NIS, and now the new pension act, I would add 22%, so that will bring it up to 80%. Before NIS was established on April 3rd, 1983, all pension was paid by the central government. And after April 4 and onwards, all persons who joined the service only receive pension from NIS. You spoke about contracted employees. And what I got from that is that contracted employees are not entitled to a pension, but they hold pensionable posts. Comrade Roberts, the King's Counsel, who seemed very, very versatile, I really must applaud him for that. He gave the case of Mr. Bihari, who was on contract and held a pensionable post and was sent home. He was not entitled to a pension. He did not have a letter of employment from the Public Service Commission, although he had to subject to the public service rules.
Although I think what King's Counsel was saying, that was what the court decided, but in fact that is on appeal.
Oh, yeah, because he said he took the matter to court and he had to appeal the court judgment.
Right.
Okay.
The appeal not yet determined, so that's how it standing issue.
So the court didn't rule in favor of the government?
The court ruled at the first instance. Remember the court, you have a high court, but you can also always appeal.
Yes.
And in fact, an appeal has been instituted, and that appeal is outstanding.
That
will be a very important decision, a very important decision going forward in terms of this very act. I think we will have to not do exactly all the things we wanted to do tonight, but hopefully a few minutes the issue will be straightened out with Jess. But I just want to say also, Colin, I've been reading your articles. I read your article on PBC this week.
Oh, okay.
We should also point out that GBSS is celebrating, that's the Grenada Boys Secondary School, 140 years. Mm-hmm. The St. Joseph Convent celebrated 150 years recently, and the St. John's Christian Secondary Shaper, as we call it, had a big celebration for the 60th. These are all secondary schools in Grenada, as you know, yourself as a secondary school teacher, and you know that. We have Senator Humphrey back with us, so unfortunately, the other issues we had to discuss, we'll have to shelve them and go straight into the program, and that's because of the hiccups that we had. Okay. So tonight's program was really prompted by two things. An article in the newspaper a recent article in the newspaper by Senator Humphrey, and also a clipping from Voda Dilemma, King's Counsel, senior counsel out of Trinidad. All of that comes against the background of the crime wave, really one could say, which is sweeping the Caribbean, if not the world. And the reaction and responses of many people, including people who were previously advocates against certain forms of punishment, they are now basically saying that, listen, we have to go that way. To start off the program, we will play a clip from Voda Dilemma. As I said, he's a senior counsel in Trinidad, criminal defense attorney, has taken up many cases, was seen as a human rights lawyer at one time, but he has a particular position now. which it reflects a position in the society, and therefore one I believe, and I know many others think, that we should discuss and engage so that we can ventilate the various positions. So let's hear Mr. Dilema.
Listen, the prisoners, we don't have the death penalty in Trinidad again. The only people who impose the death penalty in Trinidad are the criminals. They have the death penalty. And of course, they ain't got no mercy committee when it comes to them. So you can't go to the mercy committee when a criminal come in your house or put a gun in your head. I had it done to me. So I know what it feels like too. So I know both sides. Right? The man said he didn't know who I was and what happened. So he killed my wife, right? But then he hit me, and I can't hear in one ear and all this kind of thing. So I know, right? And I am saying that when you have that kind of situation, if you want to be serious and make Trinidad and Tobago a good place to come to, you must bring back laws to help the police and the regiment and the Coast Guard organize themselves. Among the laws, the death penalty. Let me tell you something. You have to do it you have to go to referendum, right? And ask the public of Trinidad and Tobago, would you like to have the death penalty? And if they say yes, bring the damn thing back in as quickly as possible. Forget the Englishman and what's going on up there, right? Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore did exactly that, right? And he have the death penalty there up to today, right? They hung two people about 2 years ago, right? And what have you? And that is one of the things. Bring back flogging, right? Corporal punishment. When I go to jail, they impose 10 strokes on a fellow, right? And I go to prison to do the appeals, and the fellow say, he ain't worried about the 10 years, you know. He said, boss, is 10 strokes. I can't take that, you know. He said, I can't take that. He said, look, I'm a man, my heart ain't good, right? And so on and so on. And I have 5 children. So I said, but when you were chopping up the woman, you didn't think about the 5 children? And your heart, and then, what about that? He said, oh God, boss, right? Boss, don't push me down, don't push me down. Oh God, I can't take the strokes, right? You know how they used to do it? They would give them 5 as they go in. And when they're coming out, a month before they come out, to remind them to behave themselves 5 more. That is how they would deal with that. And let me tell you something. I never knew of a man who get beat like that, go back to crime. And I challenge anybody who listening to this program to tell me that they know about somebody who did that. Because I knew many of them. But the time you see to get that, right, they ain't going back there at all. And that is one of the things. So you do that, and you reintroduce the death penalty, and you give the police and the regiment a break, a chance. And that is how I see that part of it. Don't Shady was my client. Don't Shady, a week before he hanged, sent to call me, right? And I went, because I had done some cases for him before. And I went to the jail. You know what he told me? He told me that he agreed with the death penalty. And I was so shocked. I said, really? He said, Mr. Dilema, let me tell you something. If they don't start imposing the death penalty, it go get real bad here. Don't Shady told me that. One time, Mr. Prokop, who was his lawyer too, right? Mr. Prokop asked him, he said, Dole, why you don't, let me call the police in and give them all the information that they want to know. He said, Mr. Prokop, if I did that, I'd be dead in 10 minutes. That's right. He was a strange man, eh? But that happened, and he told me that he agreed with the death sentence, the death penalty, and that it was the only thing that could help to save Trinidad.
Okay, so that was Mr. Dilema setting the tone for tonight's discussion. But before we start, and with much respect, I just want to point out that, notwithstanding what Mr. Dilema says, that the death penalty has not been abolished. As far as I'm aware, it any island in the Caribbean. I'm subject to correction in terms of Guyana, but it has not been abolished in any of the other states, certainly not in Trinidad, not in the OECS. What has happened is that the mandatory death sentence, which existed prior to 2000, the mandatory death sentence in some of the Caribbean islands have been abolished and declared to be unconstitutional. In other words, before 2000, if you were found guilty of murder, the imposition of a death sentence was automatic. The OECS Court of Appeal, firstly, and then the Privy Council confirmed that that sentence, the mandatory sentence, the automatic nature of it was unconstitutional, being cruel, being inhumane, that a person who was convicted of murder should still be given the opportunity to mitigate the sentence, as they say, to give reasons, to put forward reasons and to put forward evidence as to why the maximum sentence should not be imposed. In Trinidad, however, the mandatory death sentence in Trinidad is still in place. In fact, the Privy Council has so decided that the mandatory death sentence still prevails in Trinidad. Yes, the mandatory death sentence is still in place in Trinidad. Jamaica had an amendment. They brought in non-capital murder, but I don't think Trinidad brought it in. We have it in Grenada, non-capital murder and capital murder. So that's the first point. As to regard flogging, flogging is in fact has been ruled to be unconstitutional in Grenada, and therefore it is unlawful. I'm subject to correction on the mandatory death sentence in Trinidad. If any of the callers, could clarify that if I'm wrong on that in terms of the mandatory death sentence as far as it applies to Trinidad. So having said that, I want to invite Senator Humphrey to put forward his view and put forward his position on this issue.
All right, thank you, colleagues. And let me just say good evening to you, Jomo, Colin, all comrades and colleagues of mine who I know very well. I'm grateful for this program. I think the learned senior counsel speaks exactly for me. If it was on another subject matter, I would really say no more. I would really say no more on the question because I think dilemma expresses 100% congruency with my view. But let me just expand a little bit as we are in this kind of engagement. Wars are fought all the time amongst humankind. Over eons of years and eons of centuries, people fight wars. In wars, people die. They are just wars and wars of liberation. All of the anti-slavery, what they describe as rebellion by the colonial masters, consistent with the view that slavery was, it was lawful to them. And they introduced a description in order to fit the punishment that they were going to mete out in order to keep us in that level of bondage, to feed the capital and wealth accumulation of capitalism. The wars that our foreparents fought, otherwise called uprisings, but they were wars. They were just. The national liberation wars which swept through the continents of Africa and other colonial territories are just wars. The wars that the Palestinians are fighting against Israeli apartheid is a just war. People died. All right? But at the end of the day, the overriding issue is the cause. What we have to understand in the Caribbean today is that we are in a state of war. There is a low-intensity civil war unfolding in the Caribbean. Some states more advanced than others. Haiti is a classic example of that war. As a matter of fact, there had been an attempt to legitimize what's unfolding in Haiti by those who are involved in the macro economy, trying to present themselves as liberators. I mean, what an absurdity. But Haiti represents the worst features of it. We have Trinidad and Tobago and we have Jamaica, to the extent where armies have now got to be involved. So I want us to understand, when we talk about crime, what it is we are talking about. It is not the crime of old, where a guy feels insulted having accosted his mother and picks up a stone or something, or a brick or something, and in that fit of anger, he knocks you down and you die. We're not talking about that. What we are faced with here right now is the rise of the macro economy that is challenging the state. There's literally a fight now for state control. And this has permeated all areas of society. I mean, the circumstances in which the Prime Minister gets up one morning in Trinidad and Tobago and says, I'm calling it quits, right? And then soon thereafter, a state of emergency has to be declared. I think there was 60-something murders within a short period of time. The weaponry that's being used, the fact that we have a state of emergency, and of recent vintage, the Commissioner of Police is placed under arrest. We in Jamaica, armies are for one purpose primarily. The primary purposes of armies is to secure the sovereignty of the state. We don't have any external, but in the sense of which I'm speaking, no, I'm not talking class issues or international relations. We have no one on our borders bearing down on us. And the weaponry that's available to those criminals, right? I have described it as a low-intensity civil war that's taking place here. And in that context, the different arms of the state are actors in it. And let me say this. This is the worst time for the judicial arm of our states. They have gone to great lengths. They have consumed a lot of British liberalism in the judicial thinking and have imposed that on us. Something which can't work. And the dilemma is right. You can't, in this war, people will die. The criminals are killing people. The numbers for some of the small countries, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, are beyond alarm. We are seeing forms of that war even expressed in Grenada here. All right? Of recent vintage, according to the conventional wisdom, one of the leading guys in this trade relocated to Grenada and was executed in broad daylight in a village in the south of Grenada. Up to now, no one has been arrested, no one has been charged, and this is not the first time. Carnival last year, Sunday night, 2 hits, right? And what is even more alarming is that when the guy's body was repatriated to his homeland of St. Vincent, and his funeral was taking place, he had to turn out to that funeral that had to take it with 3 DJ trucks. His funeral was larger than any political rally that St. Vincent, and Jomo is here, he could testify whether what I'm speaking, whether I'm being melodramatic or not. But from what the videos I saw, his funeral, right now, and why is that so? He's contesting with the state. He's contesting with the state for influence. So when a court meets, and right now, for example, taking Grenada, we have just tried, in the face of these very alarming situations, and the proliferation of guns. And let me tell you something, Grenada had more guns per capita than any or all of the English-speaking Caribbean countries put together during the period of the revolution. But no one fared, because those weapons were not for purpose of criminality, but for purpose of securing the sovereignty of a popular of the state in a popular movement of the people. So although we had more guns, less people died of murder during that period of time, right? Less criminality occurred during that period of time. And that is not to say that we didn't have significant elements of poverty equal to almost all the other states in the Caribbean. We were somewhat better than others. So I don't want to link the reason to the whole question of poverty. The point I'm making here is this. The narco trade right now, the narco economy is contesting with that of the national economy, and there is more money circulating in the narco economy than there is in the economy of the state lawfully. The courts are completely indifferent to where we find our situation. And they are, in a sense, aiding and abetting. We have just passed some laws. The intention of Parliament is that if you are caught and convicted with an unlawful firearm, you must go to prison. The laws were amended and passed, popularly received by the mass of Grenadian people. There was some recent arrests and charges and gone before a magistrate. As a matter of fact, the state found it necessary. The judicial arm at the level of the magistracy is raising deep concern within the Caribbean. Deep concern within the Caribbean, so much so that under the recent Firearm Act, a magistrate cannot give up a person charged with an unlawful firearm bail because of certain concerns being expressed. And I want to be careful on a program like that with what I say. But I think people will understand what I'm saying, right? That this economy is so pervasive. It is so huge. There's so much money involved in it, right? At all levels of the society, this thing has penetrated. And what has arisen is a low-intensity civil war. And the run-of-the-mill legislation that we have, and our judiciary who lives in a bubble, right, and are imposing this liberalism on us. I have asked myself the question in recent times. I mean, who is the judiciary answerable to? No one. No one elects them, really. They only have a role to safeguard basic rights, but they are more concerned with the rights of the criminal than the rights of we, the victims, who live in constant fear. So I support the dilemma 100%. I believe that the death penalty should be brought back, and I believe from arrest to conviction should be no more than 18 months, and thereafter you face the hangman in a compulsory death sentence. This is war. This is war. Right? Okay. And until we come to that realization, the various arms of the state come to the realization that we are in a low-intensity civil war, we are rolling right down the road towards Haiti.
Okay, Chester. I just want to remind, just to let the viewers know that there is a calling facility. You can call to give your views, but let's hear Brother Jomo when I say rebuttal.
Oh, wow. That's a mouthful from the brother, Chester Humphrey. Look, There's no doubt that criminals are escalating their attempts to control turf, to do whatever they need to do. And this is alarming. But this is nothing new. I remember in 1998, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines wrote a piece in one of the local newspapers entitled "Fear Stalks the Land" in 1999, in which was talking about crime and violence and drugs. So the story is not new. But we had the death penalty in St. Vincent. 3 persons were last executed, hung. Franklin and David Thomas and Doug Hamlet in 1995. In that year, 1995, we had 20 persons 20 homicides. We had 3 hangings in that year. And in 1996, we had 24. And in 1997, in 2000, we had 36. And in 2024, we had 54. So if my friend's articulation is correct, it may well have been that with the 3 hangings we had in 1995, we should have seen a corresponding almost automatic decrease in homicides following, because the argument is made that hanging are a deterrent. But as we saw, and I could only give the St. Vincent, I could give other examples, but I choose to give the St. Vincent example for now. You know, I listened to Senior Counsel De Lima, and I reminded of the times when I lived in the United States. It was famously said then that a conservative is a liberal who was mugged. So here's the esteemed Senior Humphrey talks about, and such a tragic situation. His wife was killed, he was gun-butted, can't hear. And whereas he was a human rights lawyer before, after that experience, he's now claiming that he wants the death penalty because the death penalty would solve or stem the escalating crime situation. The statistic don't seem to support that. In the 2 countries that I can think about where there has been a major fall off in criminal activities as a result of aggressive state action, and those resulted mainly in extrajudicial killings, are in El Salvador, are in the Philippines, under the previous, what's the man name? Duarte, I think, in the Philippines, and I think it's Feliki is the man name in El Salvador. But those were extrajudicial killings. So I am not so sure that this eye for an eye approach that seems to be gaining credence. In fact, it's a rather popular view, I think, in the Caribbean, that only if we were to have the death penalty, we would solve crime. But the truth of the matter is this, that the death penalty is there, as the moderator, Ewart Lane, said. I know we had some restrictions with Pratt v. Morgan in 1999, where the Privy Council ruled that if somebody is on death row and they're on death row for more than 5 years, you have an automatic commutation to life imprisonment. But the death penalty, it's on the books. It hasn't been removed. So this populist notion that we need to bring back the death penalty is to give the impression, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent says the same thing, to bring it back is to give the impression that society has moved away, and liberals, as Chester says, has taken over the judicial system. It's not true. I am surprised to hear a brother of such experience saying that the courts are aiding and abetting. Now, I practice in the criminal courts, and I know that criminals are at serious disadvantage. Serious disadvantage when they get to the court. And to say that the courts are aiding and abetting criminality is to do an injustice to the hardworking people within the judicial system. That courts support criminals more than they support victims is an affront to the people who function in the criminal justice system. Now, we have tremendous problems. And rather than look for the social, economic, and other reasons why we are escalating in the way in which we are escalating, we tend to grip or to hold on to this populist notion that if we were to execute more people, then we are going to end up with lower crime. And again, the statistic doesn't prove it. 109 countries currently in this world don't have the death penalty. 109. They're not just European countries. 109 of them don't have the death penalty. In England and in Europe, part of it is not only do they have the death penalty, but they don't have the proliferation of guns. It is true we live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of drug shipment, there are guns. And what we need to do is to join the forces, some of the forces in some of the state authorities, like in the south of the United States and so on, that are making an attempt to go legally after the gun manufacturers to ensure that they are held liable and responsible when people who get easy access to guns go out and do a lot of bad things. We know, for example, there are certain theories that are there. Theories that people study all along, theories that people find quite persuasive. I mean, if the society projects a given lifestyle and that society is not offering the opportunities upon which people can live the society which the society says is the good life. And compounding that, people see that some who didn't do as well as they did in school, or some people who are connected in certain ways, seem to be cartwheeling forward without any kind of effort. We end up with the 50 cent syndrome, that we intend to get rich quick or die trying. Those are the difficult problems we had. So 2 years ago in Trinidad, the prime ministers identified crime and violence as a public health. I think that was a major advancement, although they did themselves a disservice, because rather than dealing with the theories, they took the high ground to say, okay, we're going to see it now as a public health issue, but they blamed everybody else but themselves. So these are hard, difficult issues that we have to deal with. But certainly, this Kool-Aid notion that all we would start doing is hanging people and killing them, and when somebody commits an offense, we are going to flog them. And as Senior Counsel De Lima says, nobody who gets flogged goes back to prison. Those things need to be tested, because it is highly unlikely when a criminal decides he's going to kill somebody or to harm somebody, they're doing that for a combination of reasons. Some of them are in gangs, some of them are doing it for money, some of them are doing it for status, some of them are doing it to be welcomed into certain groups. So those are the social reasons that we have to try to wrap ourselves around and to ensure that we bring policies that move young people, because a lot of this crime and violence is a young people affair, that we move young people away from those kind of social situations that cause them to lose themselves rather than to do socially productive things. When I was a youth, what we had was a lot, and I'm going to round up so that we can get back to my brother. There were a lot of social development organizations. There were a lot of civil society organizations. What we had almost immediately after the implosion and collapse of the Grenada Revolution and the American invasion was there was an assault on voluntarism. There was an assault on community. Everybody now wanted to be paid to do something. So individualism became a feature of our societies. And because that individualism has been inculcated over the last 2 decades, we end up with a situation now where so many of our young people are so alienated, they feel so hopeless, they feel so helpless that they're easily drawn into crime. So I don't think.
What did you say that move towards self-centeredness, liberalism, as you call it, is universal?
Excuse me?
What did you say? It's universal. It's not just something in the Caribbean.
No, of course it's universal. But what we have in the more developed society is that they are better able to do things that can help their communities. What the anomaly is in the United States, for example, particularly in the South, where the South is still, in many respects, very agrarian, where you don't have the kind of opportunities and everything else. You still have a proliferation of crime in the South. And as we see with the statistics, Houston, Texas, or Texas as a state, is one of the it's like the ground zero for executions in the United States. But Texas don't have less homicides or less murders. In fact, they're at the top of the chart when it comes to homicides and murders.
Yeah, so
I say that for now.
I don't know, Chess, if I may, do you think that this low intensity war you speak about, I don't know if I just wanted to bring it out. Am I correct that you are saying that widespread hangings and the use of these measures will lead to quote unquote society triumphing in the war and the quote unquote criminals being defeated? That's what you are saying?
Well, there are some good examples of this. I mean, let me just leave with one side point here, because I just think it's necessary. Look, if you went to a doctor and he prescribes some medication and you refuse to take it, you can't proceed to claim that you're being treated by the doctor. I just want to make that point, to make the other point. For all practical purposes, hanging has been abolished in these Caribbean states. You can't hang 3 men in 1999 or in 19 or 2000 and expect that to have an effect on your rising crime rate. The figures that Jomo called out for St. Vincent, right? How many hangings did the total number of murders since the last hanging? Yes. has escalated and increased and outstripped because you stop hanging people. It's just like an inoculation to a vaccine. They all look, in every vaccination process, there are booster doses. You can't have hangings once in every 30 years and expect for 20 years or 25 years. And then you have 40 something, 50 something murders between the time of the last hanging and now. Over a 20 or 25 year period and expect that to work. What I can tell you is, well, let me finish. What I can tell you is, and the farmers in Grenada will tell you, when there was a magistrate here one Jerry Seeds, and he would apply that flogging to a period of larceny cases. And the farmers will tell you that in any magisterial district that magistrate sat, the level of period of larceny went down. Because once you appeared before him,
you have any empirical evidence for that?
It works.
That's true.
But according to the farmers, I'm not a farmer, but according to the farmers, right? And there was a lot of expressions in the papers and calling programs about farmers and that. When Jerry was removed, in fact, when Jerry was moved from one magisterial district to the next, the farmers from where he was were literally petitioning him to come back. Right? We got the example of Lee Kuan Yew, right? Who was faced with a similar situation. When the British launched the Opium War on China, in order to colonize that country, and it was left with lingering effects.
I want us to stay on point. Yeah, I was asking you if it is your view that you responded in a way in terms of Jomo, and I wanted to have a follow-up question. So my first question is, I asked, and I'm saying that, I don't know if you'll agree with me, that hanging as a punishment that you advocated, is geared towards two things. One, satisfying what I would call that Old Testament desire for vengeance in the white population, one, which I can understand, and two, which I think is the argument you're making because you're not taking the first point. You are saying, and I'm trying to get that clear, that it is a solution to the crime problem that we're facing. In other words, are you saying that's what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm saying to you that the courts, arm of the state,
what's the evidence?
That arm of the state, where they just look at the sentencing and think that's being laid down. You just look at the so-called sentencing guidelines that pop up from nowhere, didn't come from Parliament, and restricts the hand of a judicial officer in applying what Parliament desires to be applied. In the recent amendment to the Firearms Act, it is Parliament's intention that there should be custodial sentences and significant custodial sentences too. None of the cases that have come to court, even where the possessor of the firearm pleads guilty, there has not been any custodial sentence. In one case, I think there's some suspended sentence, some ridiculous nonsense, right? That was issued by the court, right? And I'm saying to you, what we are faced with and the remedies, I mean, all of these theories that is advocated by Jomo that we must spend time trying to find out some social, that hasn't worked anywhere.
But that's not so.
That doesn't work anywhere.
But Chester, you can't do that, because in the countries that have the 109 countries that have abolished the death penalty, they have very low homicide rates. But I want to take you back to your argument.
The lower the rates is related to the fact, no, I'm just seeking clarity on what you're saying. Are you saying that because there's no death penalty, there are no murders.
I didn't say that.
I don't understand.
said
I don't understand the link. You said
the
there are several countries that don't have the death penalty, right? They have abolished the death penalty, and they have low murders. So I'm trying to see the link. Are you saying that because the death penalty has been
you have
abolished,
to let me
there's a
develop the point.
mathematical drop in murders?
You have to let me develop
That
the point.
seems to be what you're implying.
No,
That
but
seems to be what you're implying.
don't take an implication. Let me develop the point. Because I want to go back to the point I made earlier, which you tried to rubbish, which was in 1995, was the last time in St. Vincent, 29 years ago, that we had hanging. 3 persons were hung on the same day.
Yeah.
And I am saying to you,
so 330 years, you think that will affect the rate of murder?
Just
I
a
don't
little
think so.
complete this point, please, and then you'll respond.
Sure.
Jomo, just go ahead and complete your point.
In 1995, there were 3 hangings. There were 20 homicides in that year. The very next year, after 3 hangings, the very next year, you had a 20% increase in homicides.
Can I ask you a question?
No, don't ask me no question yet. That statistic alone defies the simplistic argument which you make.
I completely disagree with you.
The other argument is, if we look at what happened in Trinidad, for
In
example.
the year when they had 20 murders, how many people were hung? In the first year when they were 18, how many murders? You hung 3.
My
the
brother.
Next year there were 20-something murders. How many did you hang?
My brother. You spoke extensively, and you are allowed to develop the point. So give me a chance to develop the point. In Trinidad, in 1999, Trinidad took out like about 8 persons in the same year, right? With Dole Shady hangings. Did that result immediately after in a fall off of homicides and murders? Do you know?
Different evidence says yes. Different evidence says that there was a significant reduction in murders in Trinidad for the following 11 or 12 months or whatever was remaining in the year.
And that evidence comes from where, Chess?
Well, these are reports that's carried in newspapers and so on. I mean, I don't document these things. I don't have a documentation of them. I can't tell you. But I'm saying there's an opinion which is expressed. And certainly, the limits from that society, and he would know.
Chester, the danger with dealing with anecdotes is that it puts you in the position where you are in now, because the actual fact is that after 9 persons, including the old Chody, was killed, hanged in 1999, that Mr. De Lima talked about, you didn't have a reduction. Yes, Dale Chody might have said, yeah, but I think we need to kill these men because if I go to say something, they might kill me, which is true. That's how gangs work. But the killings did not result in a dramatic fall off in homicides. And if I'm gonna end in a few seconds. I give you 2 examples now. Actually, I give you 4. I give you St. Vincent in 1995 and what happened in 1996. I give you Trinidad 1999 and what happened in 2000 and the years immediately after that. And I give you 2 other examples, El Salvador and Philippines. And in El Salvador and Philippines, what you had was extrajudicial killings. And Ben Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, said it well. If you want to give up, if for security, you want to give up rights, fundamental human rights of people, then you don't deserve either of them.
Well, all I can say is this. in reference to this and this example, you hang 3 people in 30 years, right? And I ask you the question.
No, man,
In the year following it, well, garnishing from what you say, 30 or 29 years or what, 29 years and 11 months or whatever it is, right? I say 30 years, right? In the immediate aftermath of the hanging of the tree, how many murders did you have and how many hangings did you have?
But I offered you that information.
The thing has to go to standard.
Chester,
If you want to apply that for it to work, in the following year when they have, yeah, sorry.
okay, may I just intervene here? And actually, in prepared for this program, I looked at some stats, and I don't know, Bentley, you can just put it up for us, please. Can you expand it? Okay, what this says here, Trinidad and Tobago crime statistics 1994 to 2000. Yeah? In 1994, there were 143 murders in Trinidad. 1995, there was 122. 1996, 106. 1997, 101. 1998, there were 98. 1999, there were 93. Something happened in 1999. In June 1999, Dolcini and 800 persons were hung. In 2000, there were 118 murders. In 2001, there was 151. In 2002, 171. In 2003, 299. In 2004, 260. And it kept going up and up till in 2024, you had 624, the highest ever. There are 2 other significant pieces of... Before you go, just let me give 2 other significant pieces of data. In 2022, there were 605 murders, but there were 89 charges. So in other words, 89 persons went before the court for these out of the 605 murders. The other important piece of data is that prior to 1999, and this is important, prior to 1999, what they call the detection rate for murders in Trinidad was 64%. In other words, 64% of every 64 out of every 100 murders, they were able to bring somebody before the court. By 2022, it was less than 15%. You can speculate as to the reason why. Yes, John, you can ask your question now.
My question is simply this. In the year following the hanging in Trinidad and Tobago, how many hangings did they have in that year? And how many hangings did they have in the year thereafter? All along the line of your schedule of information up to now. You can't expect 9 murders to turn around a situation. As I said, this is a low intensity war. It's contextually different. What is driving this? Right? And I don't care. I mean, I know you want me to chase after a ghost in an attempt to find a solution, like going and sue gun manufacturers, and I mean that is really ghost work. You know?
What?
Let's just go and look for a ghost. You're not going to find it. That's just, what I would call deflection. And putting our energies into a useless exercise under the pretense that you're doing something. Right? Vernon he lives in the environment. Right? He was one of those who, because of the pervasive nature of the macroeconomy and the amount of money that's involved, right? He was one of those. And I'm not suggesting that he was involved in any illegality. I'm just saying the amount of money that's involved. When the prime minister of a country stands up in the parliament and reports that the situation has gotten so bad that police officers are closing up the stations and hiding from the criminals. I heard a report, I tried to tape it,
but
where
just
prison officers are telling you, no wonder that your detection rate and your conviction rate, and then when you go to the court, you are soft handled through the court
but
because there is
just
an overemphasis. There's
but
an
just
overemphasis on your rights.
just
Right?
that but just
So that we the
that
citizens who are lawful, we the
just
lawful citizens, the elderly, have no rights.
but just that's exactly the point. I'm trying to I was that's why I make the point. Because the detection rate is so low, you tell me how hanging will take care of that. The detection rate is
It
already
will
low.
send,
That's point number one.
it will
Point
send,
number
it,
two.
look,
Point number two.
look.
Let's just say
Yeah,
this
it
code.
will, look, let me just say something. CARICOM has stepped in and sent ahead.
Yes, hello.
CARICOM has,
I will hold on.
Hello, caller?
I will, should I hold on?
No, you go ahead, caller. We have a caller.
I don't want to interrupt Mr. Humphrey.
no,
We have a
go
caller.
ahead.
You please go ahead.
Thank you,
I
sir.
can go ahead.
I could understand the point of view. I really can. It is when a society is drowning in the bloodbath, such as we are seeing in many of our jurisdictions, we will hold on to anything, whether they are effective or not. I don't think, for example, as Mr. Humphrey just said, hanging 9 people is insufficient. Perhaps they should hang 100 or 150 or perhaps 300, Mr. Humphrey. Perhaps that's what you'd like to see. In Chicago, in Illinois, as you know, there's a federal system in the United States, and so not all states have the death penalty, but Illinois certainly does. Illinois has had the highest number of murders coming out of Chicago in the last 5 years, all ages. I mean, it's a killing field in Chicago. We sometimes have to look at the demographic. We have to dig deep. When we have this kind of bloodbath, if I may, I guess I want to ask a question, but let me just lay the premise. I know I'm taking long, but forgive me. I too practice in the courts here, and I know what it's like. And you know, I know what it's like, Mr. Humphrey. I see and feel the tears of victims, and where there is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, we don't wait for a jury as lawyers. We realize our clients are guilty, and we do not put the state through the trauma, certainly the victims through the trauma, and the state through the unnecessary rigors of a trial. And for that, in a civilized society, we do accord certain benefits to a person who says, mea culpa. Slap on the wrist. That's 25 years in jail or more. But to the point, Illinois had the highest number of homicides in the United States in the last 2 years. And Illinois is a hanging state. But I understand Mr. Humphrey's point. It's sometimes, you know, his point of view speaks to the desperation and of the public. And we saw it reflected too in the legislation from the parliament. It will not pass constitutional muster, but it reflects the frustration of the general society of the bloodbath we are witnessing. I think, Mr. Humphrey, that our job is not to join the mob, that are calling for the most irrational solutions to what is a solvable problem. We cannot hang our way out of this problem. Who will be left? Thank you.
Jomo will be left, Colin will be left, I will be left, all the law-abiding citizens will be left. As I said to you, this is the low-intensity war. And what you are recommending here, he talks about Illinois. Tell me how many state executions have happened there.
But just
tell me how many executions have happened here. They are living countries where this works.
Just if I may, you may or you may not want to accept this, but in preparing for this program, I also did some research on the United States and other countries. And I should tell you there were two major studies done of criminologists with quite rigorous methodology within the last 20 years. And in both studies, over 90% of criminologists, and I mean, these are people who, that's their life. They study these matters day in, day out. Over 90% of criminologists arrived at the viewpoint that yes, hanging, the death penalty, satisfies the desire for revenge on the part of many, but it does not impact, it does not result in any reduction in killings.
I completely disagree. You know, for
I'm
years,
just telling you.
What is the basis for your disagreement? What is the basis for your disagreement?
Well, you know, people go off on all kinds of adventurous intellectual exercises. For years, it was held that the Negroids were biologically inferior. But objectively, that was never true.
Yeah, who held that view for years?
Of society during the period of slavery and the rise of racism as an ideology and so on, people held that view.
But you make that point to make which one? You make that point
I make that point to say, you know, your reference to all of these sociologists and so on, right? People go off on tangents and so on, but I'm giving you a living example. Singapore corrected that problem.
But
when China had to internally deal with the opium trade and the effects of opium on the society, the state resorted in treating people who, after due process, I'm not saying that when the sun rises, you do what you have to do. There will be a trial. There will be a trial.
To what extent did economic development in Singapore assist with the fallout and homicides?
Well, let me tell you, to get economic development, you had to have the society stabilized. You had to deal with that war that's unfolding. What's the quality of life you have in Trinidad? What is the economic effect on the scale of murders in Trinidad and Tobago on the economy? I have not seen any studies, but I could only think that it is significant because people are fearful of going to work, they're fearful of even staying in their homes. I remember years ago, I visited a comrade in Jamaica, and I was amazed at the security measures he had to take getting into his house. First, there was a gated community on the outside. When he passed through that gate and came to his house, there was a gate that he had to unlock. When he got to the foyer of his house, there was another gate that had to be unlocked. When he got inside the house, there was a gate again that had to unlock. It was a two-story house. All the facilities on the downstairs for living support with a bedroom upstairs. And there was a gate inside the house protecting the sleeping quarters.
Tell us about the genesis of that gun problem in Jamaica. Now.
Well, there are many sources claim people thought that it was political.
Which one you want to present? Because there are explanations. Which one?
No, I'm saying, I mean, I can't say specifically what the genesis of it is. There have been different views. Some people believe it is politically driven. Others believe that, well, it's linked to the drug trade. It could be a combination of both. I'm not certain which. All I could do is live with the outer and the consequential effect. Where now, in order to get some semblance or whatever little modicum of security, your army has now got to be drawn in. And you have to have sectional states of emergencies in order
Listen,
to deal with this trade.
if we take
I'm saying to you,
if we take gun violence in Trinidad, for example, it's in many respects it's the poorer sections of the community that gun violence impact. And the notion that you're presenting as though you want to present protect the entire society because of the fear which comes with irrational activities by young people and so on with guns. But what you are not doing, or what many of these societies are not doing, is putting in place the social and economic problems which are intended to assist with removing the kind of hopelessness and helplessness which have emerged in some of these communities, which correspondingly cause the dislocation among young people. The social cohesion that the society had, all of that is falling off. And they are watching other sections of this community become richer and more affluent. And as a consequence, and I'm not offering here an excuse, I'm offering an explanation for some of the things that we are seeing. So unless the society deals with that, as the caller said, you could hang 300 people a year. We have seen here, there was a time here when the political elite thought, well, no matter with that, those criminals would just burn themselves off. But since 2012, we have had 403 homicides in here between 2012 and 2022. 400. To add to that, in 2022, we had 42. In 2023, we had 56, and in 55, and in 2024, last year, we had 54. All of that we had. But so it didn't burn itself off because they were easy recruits for people. In fact, we have a situation here where the political establishment didn't even want to say that we had gangs. So there's a certain denial on the part of some of our leaders, which are resulting in an escalating criminal situation. And unless we look those things in the eye and we confront them and come up with programs that draw youth away from criminal activity, that help them to remove the kind of hopelessness and helplessness which many of them endure every day, killing young men in mass would not solve the problems that you are so alarmed and that society is so alarmed about.
Could I make some comments as a layman, man that isn't as long as you people, fisherman from Grenada? You know, I listened to all the conversation, and I think you all did well. Everybody seemed to be correct. But my point is that I do not see it as a low intensity civil wars, Comrade Humphrey put it, but as a young one, which involves not just the Caribbean, but the entire world. Drugs, which was more or less, drugs which was being used in the marketed for the US and the UK, are making its way to the Caribbean since the US and UK have strengthened protection of their borders. And it's now difficult for drugs to enter there. The drugs have made its way to the Caribbean for transshipment to the US and UK. And with the drugs come gangs and guns, etc., so that the drug lords in Latin America and South America could control the tough. The Grenadian drug lords and the Caribbean drug lords are given the arms to defend the drug, resulting in unnecessary killing of our citizens and tourists. We should therefore put measures in place to control the drugs. We have to put measures in place. You may say how. In my opinion, one, you can use sniffer dogs and drug scanners who assist the police in dealing with the crime wave. Two, those who are a danger to society should be locked away. They should not be released to the public because sometimes after 20, 25 years, they release them again. Hanging is not the solution to our crime wave, but put them in there for life and don't release them and control the drugs that that is coming through. Okay, that is my position on this whole thing. It's a drug problem, drug violence. The drug is making its way here for transmitment to North America because of the US and so strengthen their army. And the guns are coming down to defend.
I think Chester point is that the drug still is a source of money. And that's why that's where the link comes in. But I'll tell you this, Chester, I'll tell you this, and everyone. I remember about 20 years ago, there was a I think he was a sociologist in Trinidad. He had sometimes people used to laugh at him. He had a regular program. His name was Dr. Morgan Job, and he made a point that stayed with me. I remember him saying that, listen, at the time, he's speaking about, I've had about 10% of maybe 15% of the killings that you have now in Trinidad. And he always spoke about these junior secondary schools and these understaffed secondary schools. Always spoke about that. And he was speaking, even in the early days, talking about globalization and so on. He made this point. He said, we are bringing up a generation in Trinidad. Now, that's at the time he was speaking. And we are giving them sufficient education to recognize what is possible, but not enough to equip them to achieve what is possible in legitimate ways. And I remember him saying several times, in a few decades, we are going to reap the result of that. That's the first point. Also, I want to point out that right here in Grenada, we had a gang at one time. They called the Ginger Crew. I think that was the first gang, or some people say was the first gang in Grenada in this recent quote-unquote gang war. The Ginger Crew started off in a village called Coles Gap, right there in Corinth. The Ginger Crew was effectively defeated. Not by hanging anybody, not by no set of locking up or anything so, but fundamentally, the Ginger Crew was defeated by a community group and a community club in the area called St. David Trackblazers. Whole set of people in the community volunteered their services, teachers, other people in the community. And they built that club. That's the same club that produced Linda and Victor, the Olympic bronze medalists, Commonwealth champion, Anderson Peters, twice world champion, Olympic bronze medalists. And there are many other outstanding athletes and personalities coming out of that club. That club is what defeated the Ginger Crew. It was no hanging, it was no flogging, but it was the community coming together to try to save young people, and they actually succeeded in doing so. And I agree, the caller, the cry, and I could understand it as I say it, but it is a cry for desperation. It's a cry of desperation. I can understand it because the situation, when you look at Trinidad and so, it's desperate. I mean, solving crime is hard work, and it will take a long, long, long time. It will take a generation to get that impact.
If you think Trinidad is in a desperate situation, imagine St. Vincent. Trinidad has 1.5 million people.
Mhm.
We have 100,000, and we had 54 and 56 and 54 in the last 2 years.
Yep.
We have real problems. But how
And
do we?
how many hangings you had last year?
How do we get our hands around that when 4 out of every 10 person here live in poverty, and when the international statistics says that 46% of our young people are unemployed? And when you play those numbers together, how does that play out? And when you have a situation where there has been an assault on civic society organizations, reduction in youth, community, sport and cultural groups across the country, those are the kind of things that I think fuel
What I could
the
say,
bad situation we have.
what I could say is simply this: during the period of colonialism, we had the justice system was more responsive to crime. We had more poverty then than we have now.
But
The degree of poverty and the extent of poverty during the colonial period of Grenada, and I would suspect St. Vincent, is far more widespread than we have now.
may I ask again?
However,
Chester, what's the empirical evidence of that? That during the colonial period, the judiciary is more responsive. What's the evidence of it?
During my time growing up, I knew of one murder. Hatton, he was hung. The justice system worked in such a way that there was certainty in the justice system. You were found guilty of hanging, of murder, you were hung. You were found guilty of rape, you were flogged with a cat o' nine tail, it was certain. Once the liberalism crept in,
But just
right?
that's not so, you know. That's not so.
I mean, that's not so.
How many convictions?
We're going to check the records. The records are easy to check. How many murders did you have in the 1950s?
And you think
compared to what you're having now, you're linking it to poverty, and I'm saying to you, the state of poverty in Grenada in the 1950s is far worse.
I could go further.
Was far worse than what it is now.
Chester, I offered one thing, social and economic, but there are also the social mores. For example, when I was a little boy going to primary school, if you see a guy on a prison truck, would not call out to you if you knew him. Now, guys wave at you because there are serious changes. The church, the school, the community that had the kind of shame that some people had. I don't want to put my family into this. I don't want to. I don't want pastor to see me. I don't want my brother Chester to have to face this. A lot of that has fallen off, and as a consequence, when the glue that holds the society together has shredded, we end up with the difficulties we have. So I'm not here trying to make out to you that it's only an economic issue. There are all kind of social and other issues, and those are the kind of issues that you don't want to address.
No. I think it's unfair how you are crafting your response. I never said don't address those. There's no one-shot solution. There are a combination of things. Yes, the social issues must be addressed. Yes, the communities must get involved as they did in the Coast Gap. But in the meantime, you take a life pursuant to drugs. I mean, two guys on a football field and one says something insulting of another's mother, and a guy gets angry and he knocks you with a lung in the head and you die. I wouldn't commit such an act of murder to a hanging.
Okay, so that's a.
But I'm saying the hangings that come from the use of the deaths that come from the use of firearms pursuant to that why that drug trade that we're talking about. You meet in Jamaica at an appointed date.
So I want to take you on the first point.
You can't do 2 this year, nothing next year, and for the next 30 years nothing happens, and expect that to be a deterrent. That's more joke.
Okay,
The
Chess.
following year, if you did 3 this year, the following year you do 6. If you keep going up, the following year you do 10. And that's how it works. We have a right. We have a right in this society to live without fear. Right? And what has begun to happen? In open daylight, this thing is happening.
All right,
Chester.
Open daylight, this is happening.
Chester. So I just want you to pause a bit. So you agree with the courts?
I agree with Vernon Dilemma.
No,
100%.
No, but you agree with the courts that the death penalty should not be automatic, because the kid who hit the wall on the football field, that is murder, and you say that you would agree that the death penalty should not apply in those circumstances. That's all. That's all the court said. No, it shouldn't be automatic. The death penalty is still on the books, but the court said that it should not be automatic because there may be circumstances in which it is not fair to apply it. That's all the court said, and that's what I get you saying no. That's correct.
Just did. He just did.
But that has become so widespread that effectively, no one is harmed.
Okay.
The most gruesome of murders, no one is harmed.
I raised the point about the detection and you didn't take it up, because it's unfair to say that the court is contributed when only 10%, 12% of the murder cases are coming before the courts. So how you can then blame the judges? The problem is at the level of detection, and the problem is at other levels.
And the level of detection has to do with the alienation in the society.
How the court applies that law. And I have seen it time and time and time again. I've seen it in rape cases. Right?
Okay,
time and time again, you see that.
Let's focus on the hanging issue, because this is the other point. The people who are likely to get hanged, Chester, would most likely be the small fries. Those who, the 10% that get before the court will be the small fries. So you tell me, and they will always get...
Listen to me, there is need to improve on that as well. That's my argument. My argument is holistic. There's need to improve on that as well. Because an unemployed guy handling $2 million worth of cocaine. I mean, don't tell me that. I mean, first of all, where did he get the money to do this initial purchase? Right? To be able to handle cocaine in a volume, a small shop in the countryside.
It's the rare occasion you may have the example you're giving there. What happened? He may be fronting for some other big man in the society. For example, we had a situation here 2 years ago where a nurse was convicted for having 60 kilos of cocaine. She went to court and they gave her 2 years and 10 months.
That's the point.
No, hold on. Don't jump so fast. I had a client who had 6 bricks. They gave him 10 years in prison. And the entire society believes that the only reason this lady got 2 years and 10 months is because she was connected in some ways.
So my question to you is, you were very defensive when I mentioned the court and how the court operates, right? But the example you give is an example in which the court itself has come under
the example went over your head. The example went over your head. Pay attention to what I just offered.
I'm losing you. I'm
Okay.
losing you.
All right, continue.
Yeah, repeat what you said. Yeah. I
I
am
said
saying
the
to you, you gave an example. You gave an example where justice was screwed. In one case, a fella get 10 years because he had a small amount of unlawful substance. Another one who was in possession of far more than this individual, right? She only gets 2 years. And the question, therefore, it was not the police who sentenced her. It was the court. It was not the priest who sentenced the youngster. It was the court operating in your jurisdiction, because you said this is an example you're giving from your jurisdiction.
No, but
Something has got to be wrong with that arm of the state, the judicial arm of the state, where you can have such wide variances in sentencing. And you are imputing, and I understand the imputation, because I try to be very careful in making, and this is why I said to you, under the Firearms Act, there is a good reason why the state removed the powers of issuing bail from magistrates. It's a very good reason, right? And I made the point earlier that in this war, large sections of society is involved.
Okay.
Not just the poor youth who is a foot soldier. This thing has penetrated deep inside of the society. And what it requires a bold and brave actor in the political arm to confront this thing.
You have an example to
We need
offer?
a Lee Kuan Yew. We need a Lee Kuan Yew. The example given by senior counsel. We need a Lee Kuan Yew to rein this thing in.
Yeah,
Else we're in deep trouble. As I said to you, we are on the road to Haiti.
Yeah, but
and the way in which CARICOM is dealing with Haiti is to get troops.
Yes. Okay, brothers,
To get troops to deal with barbecue and others who are trying to don themselves with a revolutionary garb in order to carry out illicit acts.
Okay. Chester, we have kind of gone over tonight. I guess it has been so animated, and with with your energy, the energy you have brought here tonight, we have kind of gone over. I just want us to recognize the sponsors of the program at this point in time: Jail Professional Solutions, Gem FM, and GTAO, before we come back.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
Okay, before I invite closing comments, I just want to invite anyone who wants to call again, and also just to read some comments from the chat here. From Grenada Forever, if Mr. Diliman knows that people who were given a flogging never went back to crime, would it be a good idea to give every citizen a flogging before they become criminals? That's just the person has a laugh.
Well, let me say this. I flog my children.
Let me just read
I was flogged by my grandmother, who became my real parent because my mom died at a very young age, and I grew up with my grandmother, and I received a lot of flogging. And I will tell you something. That flogging made me what I am today. I flog my children.
Okay, good. Cyrus Griffin says, I think we passed the stage of strokes. Carly GDN says, have the criminals declared war on the sovereign or on each other? I think correctly that the war is on public safety if we had to take any part of Mr. Humphrey's views. His views are alarmist. State-sanctioned killings is a solution to fight crime. Isn't the solution to fight crime? To say that no one elected the judiciary, who are they responsible to, is a nonsense argument. No one elected the police commissioner, no one elected the commissioner of prisons. How does Chester Humphrey reconcile the seeming contradiction between his position not pro-death penalty with his and others' position to commute the death sentence, death penalty of the Grenada 17? So put on the death penalty is put in our hands in the sand as the causes of crime. Another person, the death penalty will hinder diplomatic relations with other countries. Another one, I guess Mr. Humphrey would decry the humanitarian approach to incarceration and rehabilitation. We should revisit our notion that money and economic growth are the hallmark of nation development. The average convict is a school dropout, unemployed, and abuses alcohol and cannabis. Had no father in his life, mother absent, no conflict resolution skills. Ironically, our society have changed whereby not even the church is effective. Our society has fashioned/allowed elements in our society that is now untouchable and appears to be above the law. Unless justice applied equally, regrettably, justice in Grenada is questionable. Just visit the person and observe those who are incarcerated. Dave Ned says the right to life is protected by the Constitution of Grenada. This provision allows for life to be taken in the execution of a sentence of the court in respect of criminal offense under the laws of Grenada. Any amendment would require a referendum to the people. Chester is saying that this process has been denied the people and the courts are making a decision by not applying the laws of the parliament. Someone says in 2024, the reported number of murders in Cuba was 91. And Lee Kuan Yew was not an enlightened leader to murder. He was chump before chump. That's what someone is saying here. Having said all of that, I want to just invite final comments. I want to start with Chester to give you the first go.
Well, I am convinced that the death penalty works. It works because the criminals apply it to themselves. Simple. The criminals, I'm not talking about small petty crimes. The criminals apply the death penalty to themselves every day. But when they apply, there's no trial, there's no defense attorney, there are no charges to be heard or so on, and it happens. Just look at Trinidad. Just look at Trinidad. And if you're tired looking south, just look north and look at St. Vincent. We have a similar population. They have 50-something murders. The statistics we heard is how many 500 murders in 20 years or 30 years or 15 years or whatever it is. Just look at them. So the criminals are using the death penalty, but the state must not. I don't agree with that at all. I fully agree with Senior Counsel Vernon De Lima when he calls for the reinstitution. And let's not play along with words. We have the death penalty in the books, but how practical purposes that been abolished? I think the last death penalty occurred here in Grenada was in the case of, I think, the rape and murder of Bernadette. I can't remember what her name was. That occurred not too far from where I live in Tangiers. Right? And of course, it is not just the death penalty alone. You must do other things with it. You must have your social interventions and so on, right? But I'm saying to you, what is driving this thing now is the narco trade, right? And I don't know I don't know how these interventions are going to sue a gun manufacturer going to work. We all been set up to chase ghosts. When there's a simple solution given to us in our constitution that we need to apply, and for which the criminals practice. The executions that have gone in Grenada in the last few days, including the guy from St. Vincent in a village in the south, and the other one somewhere in Caribbean, somewhere around that place there, a mistaken identity is not he they meant to execute on somebody else, and police haven't found anybody and so on. You won't find anybody because of the level of sophistication, the amount of money that's involved, right? But given sufficient time, things will deteriorate to the extent where our country becomes what Haiti looks like. Haiti is the end result of that road, and we are well on that road. I have no difficulty with all the social interventions you're talking about. Let's do that too. But if you use a gun, right, to kill somebody, there'll be a prescribed date on which you meet your maker. And I believe that solution, done with a certain degree of sufficiency, can't have one man in 30 years or 3 men in 30 years and expect that to be a deterrent. And as I said to you, this is a low intensity civil war that's unfolding, and in war people die. But they are just wars to be fought. Right? And I believe we owe it to our civilization to begin fighting that just war. And we need politicians with the stamina and the rectitude in order to take it on.
Jomo?
I want to end where I started by taking up the points which was made by Senior Counsel De Lima. He said that the death penalty would give the police and the judiciary a chance without offering any empirical evidence to establish that. Flogging, you flog them, they would not ever go back. Someone raised a point which I'm not sure if Chester would support. Why don't all of us get a flogging before anything? So let's all of us get 10 strokes, because that would mean we would solve the kind of problem that we are having. But that's the ridiculous extent, the logical extension of where your argument is going. So if you don't have empirical evidence, you started your closing comment by saying, it is my view. And there's an appreciation for that view. And that view may well be a popular view among the people, because ordinary people are the ones who feel this problem most. People in the upper echelons of society don't feel the pain. They don't suffer the mental health crisis that comes with a son or a daughter getting killed. So that may be a popular view. But if we toss that up to people and make them believe that flogging and the death penalty would result in substantial reduction of anything, we have to be able to point to statistical empirical evidence that prove. I'm not even talking here about the human rights concerns and everything else, because you could well I happen to be part of a case tangentially, because my office, where 4 guys in New York from the people may remember it, is the Central Park joggers case, where 4 guys were detained and jailed, and the current president of the United States took ads in all of the major newspapers across the United States saying that these boys should be hung. I mean, they should be executed. And my office was part, people with like Tariq Warren and others, brought a 440 motion that resulted in the release of these young men. And the state ended up had to pay them $40 million for wrongful incarceration. Even here in St. Vincent, I have done murder cases where I'm convinced the two young men who were convicted were innocent for what they were charged and convicted with. And it's only when the matter went to the Court of Appeal that twice that the matter was overturned on appeal, and they were eventually released with an abuse of process motion. So this, it's almost flippant for us to argue, because for my brother Chester, social and economic and other kind of programs are an afterthought. They are not central to solving the problem, even though he hasn't offered one single example where the flogging and the death penalty has resulted in any dramatic reduction. So I would leave it there. I don't think I need to say anything else.
Smear?
Yeah, I just want to say that there's a need to put in place strategies to address gang-related homicides. Such strategies should be encouraged and try to prevent young people from joining gangs. This should include community policing, education programs, peer monitoring, and youth outreach services. There's also a need to address firearm homicides, which is interrupt sources of illegal guns, deter illegal possession and carrying of guns, and respond to illegal gun use, which should reduce the demand for firearms among young people, along with the opportunities to access them. And there should be a comprehensive gun reduction strategy with the community involving law enforcement, the court, and social services agencies. And finally, as I said before, the government must seek to promote public awareness on illegal firearm use and its contribution to increase moderate. We should need to control the transshipment of drugs from the Caribbean to the US and the UK market. These drugs have been sent here because the US and UK have strengthened protection of the borders. We need to put measures in place to control the gangs. Okay, once we can control the gang and put measures to control gang warfare, which is one that bringing all the crimes in the Caribbean, you may not need to harm. If you punish them, you jail them forever, keep them there. No 25 years or 10 years and coming out, because of good behavior and so on. That's my 2 pence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. For my close, I'll say, first of all, we have to recognize that the crimes that we are seeing is a societal problem. These arise due to factors which are present and prevalent in our societies, and we have and we will always have an opportunity to address them at a very early stage from the standpoint of the individuals. Because every one of these criminals, everybody who are killing people with gangs and so, they were once children. They grew up in the communities, they went to school, they run around in the communities. And again, I want to make the point that Dr. Joe made 20, 30 years ago when he said, we will reap the fruits, the sour fruits of what we plant within a few decades, and that has come to pass. That tells me that if, notwithstanding all that Chester said about the intellectuals, if our intellectuals study our societies carefully, study that thing, that creature called crime very carefully, we can devise programs starting now that we will see the benefit of, if not tomorrow, in a few decades. Jerry Edwin calling on the program, he was the attorney who called in, and I want to quote what he says. And I want to advise you that we cannot hang ourselves out of this problem. There's absolutely no way we can do it for several reasons, which I don't need to go into. Crime is really the end, the outcome of things that went bad with our young people. In Trinidad, only a small percentage of those who are involved in homicide end up before the courts. It is well established that in terms of punishment, and the courts follow that, they follow principles. The first principle is retribution. So I understand the need for that. Retribution needed satisfaction. The society wants to be satisfied that people are punished for their crimes and punished for their wrongdoings. But that's not the only one. Deterrence is another one, meaning that you do something, and I think that's what Chester is focusing on. Although my view is also, and probably mostly, focusing on the retribution. But the deterrence is really so that others could recognize that, listen, this is not the way to go. And that the particular individual will decide, I ain't going down that road again. But I'm saying that evidence of criminologists across the globe, including the United States, those who study these problems on a daily basis, they have found that hanging is not a deterrent to homicides. You may differ, many in the society may differ, but that's what the studies show. And then finally, rehabilitation. And there's always a role for that. But I am of the view that, and that's my own position, that crime fighting is hard work. It's a mix of measures, but it's hard work. You put in the work now, you see the result in 10 to 15 years from now. We cannot hang ourselves out of that problem, out of this difficult situation. We cannot hang ourselves out of this low intensity war, Chester calls it. So that's my that's my take on it. Senator, I'll give you a final word on that, if you so desire.
No, well, again, as I said, the learned Vernon Dilemma Senior Counsel, who started off very much in the field of the No Hanging Brigade, have, through his life experience, come to the wisdom of our sages. Because in the years of old, a fellow would tell you, boy, I will do you so and so and so. But you know, I won't do it because I will go to prison. Today, prison has become a center of luxury for a lot of individuals. They are taken care of by the state, right? So it's less a penalty. As I said to you before, the criminals use the death penalty. I mean, look at Trinidad. Look at Trinidad. And I'll tell my colleagues this. You think they don't execute people in Cuba? Yes, very much they do. Very much they do. And I mean, the Cuban situation as a result of the blockade, economically and so on, is very dark. Very dark. But
one last question,
with a certain degree of seriousness. This is why I'm pointing to Singapore. Somebody on the chat said I could point to no example. But I give you Singapore.
One last question to you and 1 minute comment. Are you proposing that we emulate the criminals?
I am proposing that the death penalty, which is on our books, which is part of our constitution, be applied. And to do so, it may mean disengaging from certain regional, maybe the inter-American thing on human rights. It may mean getting a referendum to establish, to take out the liberalism that has inflicted constitutional thought, right? That the death penalty is a cruel and unusual punishment. It is not cruel and unusual punishment. And the case of the 6 or 4 guys in the park issue in New York with Trump, yes, human society is not perfect. There may be instances where wrong conclusions were reached and maybe somebody, but that's life.
Are you familiar with the Innocent Project? Are you familiar with the Innocent Project?
But the overwhelming majority of persons who are found guilty.
I need us to end.
One second, let me finish. And in the United States, you have the racism issue involved, right?
Okay.
But here in the Caribbean, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in Grenada, we don't have much of that element to deal with.
You have the class issue. You have the class issue in the Caribbean, and you should appreciate that very much. Just one last thing, Chester. Chester, last execution in Cuba was 2003.
Okay, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you so much for this program. I think it was very enlightening, very, very animated. Next week, we continue. We'll have on two citizens who are very, very much thinking a lot about the issue of our constitution in the context of our independence. Next week, we'll have them on for a discussion. Thank you so much and see you next week.
All right.
Thank you. Good linking up with you. Okay.